Let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker. Kurt, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you. Talk to us about the significance of this moment with Mike Johnson set to become the first House Speaker to address British Parliament. It is certainly coming at a very interesting time.
It really is, and you really have to feel for Mike Johnson. You know, he's a very decent guy, and he's coming with a very positive message about, you know, the shared history of the U.S. and the U.K. We had a revolution against British rule 250 years ago, but after that we became the closest of allies. World War I, World War II, the special relationship, and so forth. And yet he's coming to Great Britain at a time when you have President Trump imposing new tariffs on the UK and threatening to take the territory of Greenland from one of our NATO allies, which would really destroy the Atlantic Alliance. So it's a very tough message, tough time for Speaker Johnson to be there, but he is going to do his best.
I believe you are in Davos, Switzerland, if I can understand the background of your shot right now correctly. And you just heard Stephanie reporting on President Trump's latest Truth Social post, which talked about having a very good conversation with Mark Rutte and says that he's going to be in Davos talking to world leaders. How important will those meetings be in terms of Greenland and coming to a resolution that works for all parties?
Yeah, well, I hope that they're very productive. The Europeans here are mystified that President Trump thinks that he needs to own Greenland in order to deal with all the security issues that he rightly identifies are there. We recognize Greenland as part of Danish territory by treaty, and likewise, Denmark recognizes the U.S. has the right to put any military stuff on Greenland that we need to. And so we should be exercising our rights under these treaties to put any kind of defenses there that we need. So hopefully these conversations with the Secretary General, with European leaders, they'll convince President Trump that Europe is serious, they want to help, they agree with the security issues concerning Greenland. They want the U.S. to play an active role. They want the U.S. to provide military security there, and they will help. So we don't need to be talking about ownership. We need to be talking about solving the problem.
We are awaiting House Speaker Mike Johnson's comments to British Parliament. And just to set things up, a little flashback moment here. When King Charles made his speech before President Trump's state dinner in the UK in September of last year, take a listen to a portion of what he had to say.
Mr. President, as we approach the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence next year, it is remarkable to think just how far we have come. We celebrate a relationship between our two countries that surely neither Washington nor King George III could possibly have imagined. The ocean may still divide us, but in so many other ways, we are now the closest of kin.
And I have a feeling that sentiment is going to be the spirit of what Speaker Johnson will focus his remarks on.
That's absolutely right. And I'm glad that he's doing that. I think it's important that we continue to highlight the value of friends and allies and alliances and where we have come in our relationship with the UK and, in fact, with all of Europe. So I think it's a very positive message for the Speaker to bring.
The U.S. and UK, of course, still have shared security interests, and we have a partnership that is unending. Do you think that the Speaker will focus his remarks on that and other world issues that affect both of our countries?
Well, he will. I think he's going to be playing it as positively as he can. But, of course, he's going to get questions. And as we were talking about, there'll be questions about the future of ending the war in Ukraine and how do we put more pressure on Putin to do that. There might be questions about bringing Russia into this peace board to oversee Gaza. I don't know what Russia has to contribute to that. And certainly there'll be issues about Greenland as well. The hosts in Britain will want to be as positive as possible, just as you heard King Charles was there. But the Parliament is the Parliament, and you're going to have a little bit of rowdiness there, and you're going to have people who are going to be raising questions either there or certainly in the media around his speech.
Yeah, we are looking forward to hearing that rowdiness. It is certainly a unique thing that the British Parliament does. And, you know, the UK recently announced an increase to their defense budget, which is great news. And the president also wants to increase our defense budget by a massive $500 billion. And it feels like during the president's first term, it was a wake-up call to NATO when he said that we really need to increase our defense spending. And now it does feel like all countries are on board with that 5% increase in spending on defense. That does make NATO stronger as a result.
It certainly does. You know, this is a big success for President Trump, that he made a point in his first term of pushing countries for more on defense spending. Some did, but it was still not nearly enough. And he made a point, even when he was first coming in as president a year ago today, that countries need to step up, and he wants to see them spend 5%. And sure enough, when he had that summit in The Hague in June of last year, 2025, he got a commitment from all NATO countries to increase to that level of 5% of defense spending. So that really does make NATO stronger in the long term. And I think he should be very happy about that. And this is rebalancing this relationship. As Victoria Coates was saying earlier on the program, we want to see Europe take more of a lead on security issues in Europe. They need the money and the resources to do that, and they are committing to spend that.
Yeah, and the World Economic Forum also just withdrew its invitation to Iran's foreign minister, ahead of this Davos summit in Switzerland due to the killings of those protesters. How significant is that move?
Well, I think it does show the displeasure that everyone has with the regime in Iran right now. We've had issues with them on regional security issues, on their proxies that have attacked Israel and others, on human rights generally. But it has reached a critical point now, with some estimates over 5,000 of these protesters killed by the regime. So I think it is an important demonstration of the displeasure that everyone in Europe has about the behavior of that government and the need to respect human rights and the lives of the protesters.
Well, the Iranian foreign minister, Kurt, was on with Bret Baier last week, just a few short days ago, and said that the number of people killed were in the 100s. And now the Iranian government has admitted to killing 5,000 people. If that's what they're willing to admit, I mean, how high will the number really be?
Yeah, it's anyone's guess at this stage. No one has any direct access or information to get those kind of numbers, but 5,000 is already an extraordinary number. And it shows that even though the regime seems to have successfully clamped down on protests temporarily, they have lost the trust of society. And this is not going away anytime soon.
Kurt, Todd Pyro jumping in here. Thank you so much for joining us as we await Speaker Johnson there addressing UK Parliament.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.